All right, what's up, fellas? Let's go. College football talking time. We got Stephen Godfrey, old Ole Miss friend of mine. Great college football media follow for a long time. We got the Dude Wipes as always. Shout out Stella Blue drinking coffee. Brent, a little bit of a late start because Brandon Walker, T-Bob, and Liam were in here taping Unnecessary Roughness. But I always love catching up with Godfrey. It's a treat. We've been friends. Gosh, I mean, we've known each other, 20 years now? It's been a minute.
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. And I appreciate you joining us. You've got some news too. I saw you made a little bit of a career move. All right, I can't hear him now. I'm wondering what just happened. But can't hear you now. But anyway, Barstool Beach House started today. Check it out on all Barstool Beach House social media. Looks like times are interesting already over there at the Beach House. I saw Kadick breaking a chair, but man, this Barstool Beach House content is going to be just unbelievable. The next 4 weekends, what a crazy crew of characters they got there. Annika, Ella, Brianna, Nikki Smokes, Danny Conrad, Jackie, Tommy Smokes. I can't wait to sit back and just watch the chaos. I saw Annika already took a plunge in the cold plunge. Kadick breaking a chair, and this is just the start. So follow Stool Beach House on all social media to follow the chaos and madness because it's going to be freaking electric. Late summer, getting excited for college football, getting in the spirit. Can we hear you, Steven?
Maybe.
Yep. Gotcha. All right.
Okay.
I don't know why your microphone cut out for a second, but we're good now. I saw you got some big career news. What's going on?
Oh, yes. I guess none of that picked up. Yeah, I'll be I have to have 4 jobs at once, apparently. So I'm going to be on the College Football Inquirer, sort of the rebranded Yahoo show with Andy Staples and Ross Ellinger this fall. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great crew there with Ross and Andy. Those are 2 of the best follows in college football. I feel like Ross is more plugged in than literally anybody on the day-to-day of college football. I look forward to listening to that.
Yeah, no, I feel good about it. Yeah, it's going to be really fun. Starts next week. As soon as I have details, I'll put them out. But yeah, it's going to be it's weird. It hasn't really occurred to me that week 0 is like 2 weeks away.
Yeah, it's weird. This August month, I'm curious where you are on it because I know you have a family too, and it's like kids getting back into school. You're dealing with a lot of stuff with that. But it's like the August days crawl because we're so ready for the season. And I want to just get right into it. We got a good week 0 game. You see that Kansas State, Iowa State? I don't understand how the hell they're playing a Big 12 conference game in Ireland, but at least we got a good game that first week.
I think, honestly, I'm trying to remember. But, it was BC and Florida State last year. It was Naval Academy a couple years. I'm curious if we can make more of week 0 as an industry, if scheduling will allow for it. I mean, with all the other changes that are going on in the sport, I don't see why that's impossible. But it's a conference game, and it's a better, or at least a more evenly matched conference game than BC Florida State was last year. So I like the direction they're heading. I like the fact that it's a game that doesn't feel like a dud or just like a blowout right away. I mean, the rest of the day is kind of like it's basically all the teams that play with Hawaii because of the Hawaii FBS exception, which are allowed an extra week of the season because of the travel to Hawaii. Otherwise, I still think week 0 could be something a little bit better or bigger. But for some reason, college football seems to disagree.
Well, you've always said you were the first to champion the idea that I always say is have the bowl games week 0 and not at the end of the year. I remember you were talking about this years ago, and I totally agree. Like, why not do the bowl games to start the year?
You know what? I'll since that seems like it's impossible to make happen, why not do something simpler? Why not take the best FCS teams, like pick 10 teams, 5 games. And it's the teams that I think casual college football fans would recognize. So like North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Eastern Washington, the kind of teams that are in the FCS finals every year or close to it. Create some sort of I don't know, like almost the way college basketball does it, like a super weekend or something, where you have like Montana and Montana State and all those teams that we sort of dip in and out on. I mean, if for no other reason than I know gamblers would like it. I mean, it would be something. It would also give FCS a little chance to shine before regular college football season starts. No, most of America's not paying attention to that. So if we're gonna have this empty week 0, I think we should do something with it.
Yeah, I agree. No, I like the logic. I think they definitely need to do something with it. All right, you're plugged into the one of the things I love following about you is you follow the coaching industry more than anybody. Who are a couple of the guys you think are on the biggest hot seats going into this year?
Oh. I think the entire hot seat thing is changing.
Okay.
Because I think that it's harder to judge this than ever before because the standards are changing and the cost associated with making a coaching change is so different. So I think we used to just be able to say, hey, this guy doesn't win X, he's out of there. They'll pool the money together and get the buyout. And I think we're in a new world with that because, take Billy Napier at Florida, for instance. By I think the old standards, he would have already been fired. And I think by the new standards, there's been, I wouldn't say a more patient approach. I'd just say maybe a little bit more of an innovative approach to let's work out what's wrong with personnel. Let's figure out what our NIL situation is. Let's move towards, a better way of evaluating the entire roster versus just, hey, he had a slow start last year. He got blown out by Miami. I really do think in any other era, he would have been probably sacked by October, right? They finished the year arguably a totally different team, right? The team that beats Ole Miss, the team that kind of that rolls through the back end of the season. Look at where they are versus the other teams in that state now, and suddenly it's hard not to feel bullish about them. But that's because they took a more almost professional approach to evaluating the entire organization. It's very look, man. It's very NFL. It's very Major League Baseball. Is it just the coach's fault? Is it just the coach's fault when they lose? What are the last couple of years of recruiting been like? Well, that used to fall directly on the coaching staff, and now it's like, what's our personnel staff? What's our GM? What's our NIL budget? How much rev share are we going to have? So it's harder for me to sit here and say like, hey, these are the 5 guys.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of schools, look, we didn't have turnover in the SEC last year. That's insane.
Yep. None.
There will be turnover this year, but I think you might see, how about let's call it a happier graduation or retirement, whatever you want to call it in Arkansas. I could see something like that happening for sure. But even in a situation like Auburn, where Hugh Freeze is, potentially going to be the first Auburn coach to go 0-3 in the Iron Bowl to debut. There's talk now that they may ride this thing out to 26.
Yeah, I feel like he's got a longer leash because that was such a mess when he inherited the situation. But you got to see some progress, you would think, this year. I don't know what to think of the Jackson Arnold thing, but they've got talent, getting singled to Georgia Tech, and they had that stud freshman receiver. I mean, you would think.
Yeah, deciding to recruit a quarterback might have helped for the first time.
Yeah. What the Florida thing you mentioned, DJ Lagway's had all kinds of rumors. He had a hamstring, he has shoulder problems. Do you think his health's okay going into the year?
I mean, honestly, I have no idea at this moment. I do think he is. I mean, this is an obvious statement, but he's integral to what they do. But I also think they're a better defense than they were, and I think they're deeper and just a little. Everything about that just sent. When they hit the backstretch last year, they looked like a calmer, more competent team. But yes, you do need Lagway to maintain and sort of hit the momentum that they were projected to coming off of that really good, November.
Yeah, they definitely have a ton of momentum going in. They're at LSU week 3 in Death Valley. And I think, there's so much hype on the week 1, like LSU Clemson, but I think that Florida LSU week 3 game's even bigger, to be honest.
LSU Clemson's going to be a great game. I'm glad it's being played. It's campus site. You want all that stuff. But we do this every single year where we take one of these non-conference mega matchups and we sort of overreact to it. Look, there's a way in which we see the winner and the loser of that game in the playoff. Now, if it's 56-0, but if something drastic happens that's unforeseen, I would say the same thing about Ohio State, Texas. Probably wouldn't say the same thing about Alabama and Florida State. That feels a little bit more treacherous for the staffs involved. But hopefully we're moving towards an environment where bigger programs with title aspirations regardless 8, 9, whatever the conference game schedule is, they feel compelled to schedule big in the early part of the season because it's better for the sport, better for us, it's better for everybody, and they're not punished for it when it comes selection time. Scheduling intent was a phrase 5 years ago that the committee kind of kicked around, and they haven't really talked about it since. But I think the idea of going out there and if you're evaluating 2 loss, 3 loss, 1 loss, 2 loss, and you look at the intent, you look at quality of opponents, and hey, we went out there and we did our absolute best. It is a little bit more of like an RPI mentality with basketball, but I think that would be good. I think that would help the sport.
I do too, and I think it directly plays last year when Indiana and SMU had played nobody non-conference and got into the playoffs. And so when a lot of teams saw that, they're like, why are we playing tough non-conference games when it literally just matters that you win your games?
I think we overreacted tremendously as an industry, media, conference, from media all the way to conference commissioners. It's one set of data. There are aberrant sets of data in the old 14 format. And you go back to the BCS, and that thing was constantly under review because of weird results that would be created by the formula. I think we need to have 1, if not 2, if not 3 more years worth of data in the current system and the current structure before we try and revise something instantly. But what's happening is that the richest people involved, the richest entities involved in the sport, are overreacting and freaking out, and because they didn't get they didn't get the share that they wanted. I don't mind that SMU was in the playoff. I don't really care that Alabama wasn't. Alabama couldn't manage to be bothered to compete with Michigan in a bowl game, and it seems like we're still relitigating that. So, I don't think we're ever going to see a uniform scheduling policy. We don't have central governance in college football. Like, we don't have a commissioner. There's no Roger Goodell, and there never will be. Because the people who are involved who have power are never going to give that up. And so we're always going to be dealing with a situation kind of similar to last year where, the one conference is going to say, oh, hey, it should have been this, it should have been that, whatever. We got screwed, we got jilted. Did anybody think that the wrong team won the national title? Does anybody think the most talented team didn't win the national title? No. Even coming off the Michigan loss, Ohio State was, I think, most people's favorite. Especially considering the injuries that happened to a couple of the other teams, Notre Dame overall, Georgia quarterback, et cetera, down the stretch. It's not like we screwed anybody. It's, just because Boise State and Arizona State got to play later on as bye teams, that really pissed off it pissed off the Big Ten and the SEC. It's just a money play. I don't think the system is truly screwed up. Give it 2 more years, and if we have weird results for 3 years in a row, then you revisit and figure it out.
Okay, well, that makes sense. I love that you always are a champion for the G5 because I feel like they don't get enough love. Do you have any, as far as looking at the G5, obviously there's a ton of hype on Tulane, especially after getting Jake Retzloff. I think UTSA is good, got a ton of talent back, and they score a ton of points. Like any other G5 teams you're really looking out for this year?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mixed bag this year. But obviously, one of these teams will be in the playoff, so it does bear. I mean, until the richer conferences try and sort of pry that away, I think you have to start with the American, and then you add Boise, and that's basically the landscape. There could be some exceptions in there, but I don't think it's the year where you'd see like a Liberty out of Conference USA. I think the Sun Belt might be the deepest conference in the Group of 5, but the problem is they beat each other up. And when it comes to selection time, you're looking at a lot of teams with multiple losses. So week 1 of maybe the biggest G5 game is Boise and South Florida. I would pay attention to South Florida more than a lot of people are. I really like what Golish is doing there. If you don't know who he is, he was basically the sort of, I would say, play caller number 2, you can call him, at Tennessee under the current staff, under Heupel. I really like what they're doing. They've kind of found their footing in investing in college football similar to the way that UCF is. They still have a long way to go, but I think they're on the up. Boise State is sort of a standard bearer. I don't think you could ever discount them. They do turn over a lot, obviously, losing Ginty, etc. I'm kind of doing this fast. In the American, I'm curious about UTSA. There's a lot of questions there. They are kind of finding their footing. Memphis is another team I would mention, but if I had to pick one right now, it would probably be Tulane.
Yeah, I'm excited for them getting Retzloff that late was a wild thing because their quarterback situation was like a Chinese fire drill going into the offseason after they lost Mintzy.
Well, they didn't expect to lose Mintzy. I mean, that is the reality of NIL. I mean, that is the brutal reality. And when I'm talking about Tulane, I'm not talking about they're not poor.
No.
They've done an exceptionally good job of building back an investment in football, and they've got a healthy NIL culture. But look, bigger school, more revenue. You're going to come in and get rated every time.
Yeah, that's definitely the reality of it. I do have a question. Sunbelt, you mentioned there's a lot of hype on James Madison this year. Do you think they're going to be pretty good?
I thought they were pretty good last year. They just didn't really seem to get to play. It was just, really kind of circumstantial the way their schedule shaked out. They're a good example of what I was talking about, where the Sun Belt just beats the crap out of, each other. And then when it comes to, you don't have that like undefeated PJ Fleck Western Michigan year that you have coming out of the MAC. You don't get the Boise effect where there's 4 or 5 really terrible teams that they can stock up on in Mountain West play. I like James Madison a lot. The East is wide open in the Sun Belt. I like Louisiana looked better last year. Like
Walker Howard being there. Walker Howard being there is interesting.
I like Arkansas State to be a little bit better. They've got a really fun to watch quarterback, Rayner. It's more open than it has been in years past because App State is rebuilding. Look, if you're looking for like a most improved program in college football, I don't know if it's like for gambling purposes or if you just want to look smart, you want to look ahead of the curve, I would watch Southern Miss.
I was going to bring that up because they brought the whole Marshall team
worse.
with them.
Yeah. So in terms of transplants, if you're looking for something nobody knows about yet, Washington State is basically last year's South Dakota State team.
Okay? Oh, wow.
Southern Miss is basically last year's Marshall team that won the Sun Belt. Like I'm not much of a gambler. I don't know as much about it as you do, Mintzy, but like it'll be interesting to see if the market catches up with that. Because Southern Miss was terrible.
Well, the market opened at 30 or 35 to 1 Sun Belt Southern Miss, and it's down to 14 to 1. And because of all the Marshall people coming. Yeah, and then, by the way, Southern Miss hosts Mississippi State week 1. They're like an 11-point underdog. That's a dicey game for State. Because Southern Miss, I mean, we all know how fired up they get to play the Mississippi schools. That thing being in Hattiesburg, they actually got a shot to win that game, I think. That would be something, but I think it's possible.
I mean, that's a Mississippi State team that, granted, was basically starting from scratch last year, but got completely just evaporated at home by Toledo.
Yeah, I mean, 42-17. I mean, I don't know. That Southern Miss one, I'm definitely curious to see how that they could make a huge step forward, and that was someone I was looking at. I want to ask you some Big 12 stuff because you're close with Willie Fritz and you used to cover him. What does year 2 look like? Because Connor Wegman, transferring from A&M, was hurt, didn't really work out. But last year's Houston team, they had a quarterback. They couldn't throw forward passes. He could run. They had a good defense. But they got NIL money at Houston. I feel like they could be a sleeper this year.
Better, not there yet.
Okay.
They're changing defensive coordinators. The offense was there were some line play issues last year. I love the hire long term, but I think it's a year 3 emergence.
Okay.
Also, the Big 12 is so hard to prognosticate.
You could argue for 7 teams to win it.
Definitely, yeah. And you could also just I really like Arizona State. I like what they're doing. I did feel like I was in early on that staff and what they were going to do. That doesn't mean that I was predicting them to. I didn't think Dillingham was going to, they were going to win the conference in essentially year 2, I think.
It was year 2.
If they finished with 7 or 8 wins this year, it wouldn't shock me. I think there's a volatility in that league, and that we haven't really seen the replacement sort of powers that be with adding as many teams as they did, losing the Red River, dominant brands. I don't want to be cliche sports writer and say, oh, it's anybody's, but there's 6, 7 teams I could probably talk to you about. BYU would be off that list now because of Retzlaff. Utah changing their offense dramatically makes me cautious. I'm not saying they're bad. I love Whittingham, but I mean, Utah is going to look completely different if you've watched Utah in the last 10, 12 years. They're going to be, I don't know if they'll be less physical, but they're going to certainly be more spread out on offense. I think Houston finds its footing this year. I don't know if they would necessarily sort of poke their head out of the pack. The other thing is, got to figure out how much Oklahoma State can adjust in 1 year. That was basically the worst season of Gundy's career as a head coach. So I mean, just off my, I think I like TCU right now.
Okay.
If I had to
Hoover's
pick
good. That
one,
quarterback's good.
but I mean, you could sit here and talk to me about like I think Baylor's fixed a lot of their problems.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to bet against Arizona State right now. So yeah, we could do this all day with the conference, and that's what's fun about watching that league.
Yeah, no, I agree. The unpredictability. You know, Texas Tech spent a fortune in NIL because that old tycoon. You know, Iowa State, K State.
Yeah, I think that Texas Tech has been smart so far in a lot of the positioning with media. You can't avoid you can't avoid coverage for what you've done. You don't want to, but they're not at they're I've been I don't want to say impressed. It's interesting they're not trying to be too loud in the preseason. I think they understand that that's a sign of like maturity, and I think a well managed group is that they know there's going to be attention on them for the amount of money they spent, but they haven't won anything yet. So it's a damn good roster. They paid for a damn good roster, but you have to implement it. It's going to put McGuire on a short leash.
Yeah, the expectations got to be higher after that much money was spent. That's for sure. The
Yeah,
quarterback
no,
situation still.
they're
I
not
don't
gonna
trust the
waste
quarterback.
time. They're not gonna waste time. And I'm not saying he's a hot seat guy. I don't want to do that. But they're not gonna waste time on waiting for a scheme to arrive to personnel when they're spending that much money in the short term. I joked on another podcast. I was like, it's like the 97 Marlins. Like they could show up and in one cycle spin their way into a championship. And if we change rev share or NIL doesn't catch up or whatever's going to happen next year in terms of the structure of the NCAA, maybe they disappear just as fast.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to follow to see if they can put that money gets poured in there, if they can take a step. All right, I got a couple ACC questions. Clemson's obviously even money to win it. I get it. Miami's hyped up as the second best team. They couldn't stop anybody last year, and losing Cam Ward to Beck, I don't know. Like, who do you, other than Clemson, who do you like in that league?
Clemson. I mean, I'm not trying to do something cute to be sports writer. It's like they have turned it around. I should not say. I've been really impressed with how they have quickly embraced the things that they were pushing away in terms of NIL and portal and Dabo's whole culture and mindset and stuff. Klubnik has not ascended to the level which we thought he would. Maybe he'll be on time and do it this year, but it's still the deepest and best team in the league. There's nobody else. I mean, Florida State has massive systemic issues that they should almost certainly, just by statistically, they would have to be better this year in certain regards. Miami's too volatile of an entity under Mario. There's not another coach in the Power Four that almost feels like he's good for a loss every year. You know what I mean by that?
Oh yeah, no
like
doubt.
You can count on him, like a instead of wins above replacement, like a guaranteed loss below replacement. Georgia Tech 2 seasons ago, Virginia Tech last year. It is a fascinatingly dumb team at times. No, and that has nothing to do with the talent. I mean, they had Cam Ward at quarterback last year and still managed to will themselves into losses.
Yeah, no, it was crazy to me watching them last year because they have NIL money, how slow and out of place they were on defense. I mean, it was like jarring. You'd watch Miami and they couldn't stop anyone.
So schematically they'll be very different. They changed coordinators. They put that on Lance Guidry, the former DC, and said, it was his fault. He's out. If they're anything other than a top 30 or 40 defense, I don't know how you answer for that this year. What I'm saying is they have to adjust very quickly. And one of the things that I'm kind of poking at, maybe it's a theory or something, but we spent a lot of attention last year on D'Anton Lynn, the USC DC that came over from UCLA. Like he was going to fix everything for USC. Just plug and play defense coordinator. I don't necessarily think that that's possible anymore in 1 year in college where a coordinator comes in with a new system. If you follow me, like I just don't know if you have the adjustment time. But now, when I was doing spring previews and talking to coaches and just doing kind of gossip stuff, it really feels like USC is closer to the old defensive standard of the Carroll era and the early Kiffin era, and it takes that long. I think when you're bringing in a new DC, if you're going through like a fundamental scheme change, it takes that amount of time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll look out for that USC defense this year because I know there's a hot. The Riley era has not worked out necessarily the way they've hoped at all. And obviously Miller Moss left and is at Louisville, and now going with Mavi, a different quarterback. Okay, Big Ten wise, a lot of hype on Illinois. Had a great year last year. You look at the top. Penn State's got everybody back. I think they should be the favorite. But do you have any teams that could be this year's Indiana? Like, who's the random team that could be a playoff team in the Big Ten?
I don't think it'll be Indiana.
No.
I guess technically you could say Illinois would be the safest bet there. Michigan State will be better, but not as good. In terms of just like that's an overall rebuild. UCLA, I would probably put in the same category. I'm kind of starting at the bottom here, if you couldn't tell. I'm not trying to predict like, oh, hey, watch out, Rutgers is going to win 9 or something like that. I think there's a pretty defined pecking order in that conference now, even with the additions. I'm curious if Washington, if their transition year was or their transition out of DeBoer into Fish was limited to last year. If they can make a little bit more noise.
Yeah, they had 11 new starters on offense last year. I mean, it was a total
Yeah, and then remember what you're losing from the team that played in the national championship. So it's beyond forgivable. It's totally understandable. It makes sense on paper. I just don't know how much more do they crawl up this season, right? I'm fascinated by Wisconsin. It may be one of the worst coordinator hires in years, and I'm talking about Phil Longo. When
ever? How you run the air raid in Wisconsin? I could never believe that you try to run the air raid.
But it wasn't. That's the thing is, it wasn't. It was only pseudo air raid. It's one of those weird deals where like Longo's system is Longo's system. Are you going to run it entirely? And I don't know who I don't know who owns the blame. I know you blame the head coach at the end of the day, but I don't know if it was he's going to come in here and try and do more. They ran out of it a lot. It never looked cohesive. So they're changing offensive systems. I mean, when you think about how good those Cincinnati teams were those last 3 or 4 seasons under Fickell and his reputation in college football in general, and then what Wisconsin has put out, it's a step back. They did not make a change and upset the order of the Barry Alvarez like long-term dynasty and fire Chris and do all that to get the results that Fickell has provided. So it's been shocking. So that's a team that I'm looking at. I don't know if it's necessarily a hot seat situation per se, but that's a team I want to pay attention to.
Okay, and then last, I got a couple SEC questions for you before we get out of here. SEC wise, Oklahoma fascinating to me, bringing in Mateer and Arbuckle. They have a brutally tough schedule, but they had a hell of a defense last year. Just the offense. I mean, they were in the hundreds on offense. Can Mateer and Arbuckle get them? Can they make a leap this year?
What if they're just marginally better? Is that okay for Oklahoma?
Yeah, I want an honest answer. I don't want a sports writer.
Like, is it a one? But what I'm saying is, if you're a win better, but you feel like you've righted the ship in certain regards, is that enough to keep Venables around? Look, we've never seen this Oklahoma. In other words, like we've never seen Oklahoma have to live and exist in October going from, this isn't their actual schedule, but, going from Red River to LSU, playing a Florida, playing an Ole Miss, the Oklahoma standard in our brains and the Oklahoma standard in the brains of those boosters in Norman is built on, we're going to kick the crap out of Kansas and Iowa State. We're infinitely better funded. We're a legacy brand in the Big 12. How willing is Oklahoma willing at all? As a culture to accept the fact that they are not plug and play 10, 11 win, 12 win like they were in the Big 12. And if they're marginally better this year after making a big move, is that enough to keep Venables?
Yeah, no, their schedule's murder again this year too. It's really tough.
It would be the biggest loser of the last round of realignment, and I still would understand why they did it financially to go to the SEC. Like the Big 12 was separating. You wanted to be part of the Big 2. I understand why they did it, but think about all those years that Oklahoma benefited from this sort of weak Big 12 where they were just, dude, how many years were they like plug and play in the 14 playoff? Like, oh, here's OU, they're going to lose in the first round, right?
Yeah. No, that's true. All right, I got two last ones for you. Our alma mater, Ole Miss, this year, obviously, lost. Look, that defense was the best in school history. There's got to be regression on defense. They lost 5 NFL draft picks. They regressed from like top 3 to like top 30, or is it to like top 50? Because there's excitement with Austin Simmons, and I think the offense has talent, but he's still young. You know, what do you think they're looking like?
I mean, I think there's regression on both sides. I don't think Kiffin's not a wizard. I think because they've run a consecutive streak of rotating in effective quarterbacks. I think there's an expectation that that's always going to happen, and that doesn't always happen anywhere. I think with the competitiveness of the league in general, I would expect. I think again, it's not the same situation as Tennessee, but there's something instructive in looking at both of those. What if you resign yourself? If you're a level-headed Tennessee or Ole Miss fan, you're looking just at your depth chart year over year, year to year, and comparing and saying this is not the year it was last year on paper. So if we're resigned to taking a step back, how big is that step, and what do we tolerate here? So you could have a really fundamentally great 8-win season at either one of those institutions that's not going to make anybody happy, but could be the best thing for the program, if you're evaluating it in a 5-year context.
I think that totally makes sense. I think that makes sense.
Tennessee, I think I get a lot of questions about Tennessee up here in Nashville, and you couldn't control the Nico situation. Aguilar is a placeholder. Your recruiting's dynamite for 26 and beyond, through 27, I'm told. So just hang tight. No one's saying you're going to go 4-8, but if you're 8-4, you don't need to burn the house down. So in Ole Miss's case, because of the near miss of the playoff and the expectation, the amount of money being spent, I think there's a bitterness there. But I don't see 25 as the sort of plug and play. I mean, that's not the team that goes to the playoff on paper right now. I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying that's not the team that you build your travel plans on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the last one I got is LSU. I just think do you feel like there's a lot of heat on Kelly with this year because on paper that receiving core, Nussmeier's second year, they spent a ton of money in the port. Yeah, the defense should be better. I mean, it feels like a playoff or bust year for LSU.
I think they have to make the playoff.
I do too.
I think they could lose to Clemson, drop another game, maybe even a third, and make the playoff, and all's forgiven. After that, he's kind of in a swim or die situation, I think, because they've come around and they figured out NIL a little late, and there's a growing discontent with Kelly amongst a lot of hardcores, but they're still swallowing all that because they want to believe in that post Orgeron, we're gonna run ourselves more professionally. And so even though they're seeing some similar errors of coaches past, they want to believe in Kelly as this sort of CEO statesman type. I think that you can't make any more excuses. If they're on that 9 and 8 win border, there's way more intensity and way more scrutiny applied there this year. Also, you have a Heisman caliber quarterback, so this is the year you want to make a run.
I agree. Well, you got the Yahoo deal? Anything? I know you said
Phantom Island. Regular shows, PhantomIsland.show, Washington Post, and Yahoo. That's it for me right now.
There you go. Well, Stephen Godfrey, appreciate you. You've been so good to me. Been so good to me for so many years, like back on my Bossier show, and just I really appreciate you.
Shout out to Shreveport.
All right, yeah, there you go, the Port City. All right, thanks to Godfrey.
Later, man.
Love talking ball with Godfrey. We're gonna get out of here. Thank y'all very much.